Okay. I was just going to start by reviewing what happened on Tuesday in the elections around the country, which, as most of you probably know, went very well for Democrats and progressives. Maybe the biggest news, as far as we're concerned, was that the race that we had been following and encouraging people to support for the special election to the state house in Pennsylvania was won by the Democrat Heather Boyd, which means that the Republicans will not take control of that house. If she had lost, the Republicans would have gotten a majority and would have gained control of the Pennsylvania, both houses in Pennsylvania, and that would have been very bad. She is very staunchly supportive of abortion rights, and her Republican opponent was not, and that was really a big race. And Pennsylvania will remain just one of two state legislatures in the country with split control between the two houses in the state, which is sort of interesting. In almost every state, one party controls both houses. So that was a big race, but there were some others as well. One was in Kentucky. The Secretary of State, who's a incumbent Secretary of State, is a Republican named Michael Adams. But he, even though he's a Republican, he has been supported by Democrats because he has run fair elections and has spoken out against the big lie and election deniers. And he was opposed by two election deniers, two MAGA people, and he won, even in Kentucky. So that's a good sign. And in Pennsylvania, another election denier, in this case, it was a judge, a sitting judge, who had ruled in favor of Donald Trump's challenge to Biden's election after 2020, was running again and lost in the Republican primary. So the MAGA candidate lost to a judge who is not an election denier in the Republican primary. So that's another good sign. And then, as you may have read, the Republicans lost a couple of significant local races. The biggest was in Jacksonville, Florida, where the Democrat won in a huge upset. The Democrat flipped the mayor's office, which had been in Republican control for a long time. I think she is just the second Democrat to be mayor since the early 90s, and she's the first woman to be the mayor of Jacksonville. Jacksonville is the most populous city in Florida. It's got more people than Miami or any other city. So Donna Deegan is her name. She won by 4 points, which is not a ton, but it's also not a squeaker either. So that's a great victory. And the person she beat was a MAGA candidate backed by both DeSantis and that awful group Moms for Liberty that is banning books everywhere. And they ran a bunch of TV commercials against her because she had attended and participated in Black Lives Matter demonstrations back in 2020. And they made it seem like she was some crazed radical. But she won. And it's significant because, unlike many other big cities, Jacksonville includes the entire county, Duval County, which includes a lot of non-urban areas. It also includes a large Navy population. And it has been a conservative stronghold for decades. And in 2022, Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis both won their races in Jacksonville by a lot. So the fact that a Democrat won this race sends a really strong signal that MAGA extremism is a losing electoral strategy. One other big mayoral race was in Colorado Springs, which is maybe the most conservative fairly large city in the country. Colorado Springs is sort of the epicenter of Republican conservatism and evangelical Republicans. And in the mayor's race there, a moderate independent who is a Nigerian immigrant beat a MAGA Republican by 15 points. Really an astounding result. The independent, his name is Yemi Mobolade, will be the first non-Republican mayor since they first started electing mayors 45 years ago. Also the first Black mayor. And, you know, it's a strange result, a very surprising result. And it appears that he won for a couple of reasons. One is he got support from a number of moderate Republicans. He reached out and got support from moderate Republicans who had their own disputes with the MAGA candidate. He ran a really strong campaign with a good ground game, knocked on a lot of doors, and had close ties to various groups in the community, including the business community and the evangelical community. And as is often the case in these local races, there were local issues that were probably most important, in particular, a water rights dispute that the MAGA guy was on the wrong side of. So that was a great win, and really a sign, again, that MAGA extremism is a bad strategy, but the Republicans keep doing it, and we should encourage it.
I'm tripling down on it. Let them.
And the last local race that I want to talk about was in Pittsburgh, where the county executive for the Allegheny County, which includes Pittsburgh, was a progressive. The Democrat candidate was a progressive named Sarah Innamorato.
No, I've got half.
And
Yeah.
she won. It's a heavily Democratic area, but she won the primary over some much more moderate candidates, and she'll be the first woman to hold this office if and when she wins in November, as expected. And elsewhere in Pittsburgh, there were a number of progressives who won the district attorney and for county council. So really good election night in the Pittsburgh area. Simon Rosenberg, who we've talked about before and who's a really smart Democratic strategist, says that he thinks, based on what he saw Tuesday, that the conditions that drove the midterms in November are still strong. Voters are voting on abortion rights and gun violence and against extremist candidates. And he also said, which I liked.
Thank you. Carol, I see your hand.
Yeah, just one more tidbit.
Please mute yourself.
If it were my dream, I'd want to take
Please
a look
mute
at
yourself.
why it
Thank
comes
you.
to my thigh.
Can you mute yourself?
Why it
Hey, Ruth,
attaches on
Ruth,
one side.
can you
of
mute
my
yourself?
body.
We
And
can-
what does that mean?
somebody
Wait,
can
I
mute
can
her.
mute her. I can mute her. It's
Yeah.
okay. Go for it. Okay.
So Simon Rosenberg said, and this is a quote, "A fired up Democratic grassroots through donations and hard work, calls, texts, postcards, and canvassing continues to push Democratic performances to the upper end of what is possible." So that's great, and that's us, and we need to keep doing it. Last thing I'll say is coming up next, looking ahead in June 20th is the Virginia primary. And we have our eyes on one primary race in particular, and that's in the 13th Senate, Virginia Senate District. That's the district where sort of a pseudo-Democrat, he is a Democrat, but he is anti-abortion and anti-women's rights and just a terrible guy named Joe Morrissey is running for re-election against, and I'm not sure I'll pronounce her name right, Latrice Ayer.
Right.
And she's really a good candidate. The district includes Petersburg and parts of central Virginia. It leans Democratic, so whoever wins the primary will probably win in November. So this primary is very important. And in fact, it's been called in the Nation magazine, they had a big story calling it the most important Democratic primary in 2023. Morrissey is an awful guy. He's a lawyer who has been disbarred twice. He has a history of fistfights with candidates and news reporters. He's gotten contempt of court citations. He's made a number of demeaning comments about women, including the Democratic women who serve with him in the Virginia Senate. All 6 of those women in the Democratic women in the Senate have condemned him for his destructive comments and actions. And Planned Parenthood issued a statement recently calling him out for attempting to deceive voters about his record. So this is a really important race. The Virginia Senate is really touch and go, will be in November, touch and go. And it's real important that we support Latrice Ayer. We can do that by volunteering, making donations. There's a link in the last newsletter to sign up to do that, including a postcard link with postcards for Virginia, who are writing postcards for Latrice Ayer. We got to get busy quickly because, as I said, the election is June 20th. So thanks, everybody, and I'll turn it back to Dee.
Thanks, Steve. That was a great roundup, and I really think there's a lot of reason to feel good. Just looking in the chat here, just have one little, mainly just me and Nina. So Nina says, so great to hear all the good news, but why is Trump ahead of Biden in the national polls?
He's not in the last poll. There was a poll this
last
week.
poll flipped.
Yeah, complete flip.
Yeah.
There was a poll that had Biden up by a fair amount. But my comment, I don't want to take it from you, Dee, but my suggestion would be ignore the polls.
Yeah,
just ignore the polls.
Too early.
And it's much more revealing what happens in elections, like we saw Tuesday, than what the polls say.
Agree. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened in 2016, right? The polls were wrong. But yeah, the latest one that I saw is I put in the chat, and there was a news story about it. It has Trump up by 7 against Biden.
No, the latest one flipped it. Biden is, according to a different poll by I think it was an Axios Ipsos poll. Can't remember. Had Biden.
That was just last week. That
fair amount
one
this
I
week.
saw that.
Yeah,
that he flipped, but
again, you can go crazy following the polls.
Yeah.
This early. Judy's asking, Judith is asking, are we doing letter writing for the VA Dem aired? Well, it's the thing is that it's only the primary is on the 20th. So you can definitely do things, but we're not organizing anything official from Indivisible Montgomery. We just don't have the time to do it. I'm personally writing postcards in fact, I'm going to be doing postcards all afternoon with the link that Steve sent out in the newsletter was the 20th, I think was when Steve, if you look in your in your email, in your inbox, the newsletter Steve sent out on the 20th had the link to writing postcards. I looked for letters, right? You know, that letters are more effective. I looked at Vote Forward today, this morning. Judith, I didn't see something, and maybe I missed it, you know, for Lucrece aired on Vote Forward, but you know, I could have missed it. And yeah, and you can make calls too. And if you just go to her website, there's a variety of ways to plug in. And I would really, really encourage you to do that. I mean, it is a massively important primary. And we totally need to get rid of Morrissey.
Or make a donation.
That's
for-
right, Rose.
For a few,
Or just
make them a
donate.
donation for a few dollars.
Yep, perfect.
It's a small, you know, it's going to be a fairly low dollar primary race, so every dollar helps.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, well, I see our guest has arrived. Bill and Fern, would you like to go ahead and introduce
Ourselves?
Yeah,
Fern,
Fern, mute you just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. So you don't want to do, you want to do your presentation, Dee, after? You want to do your presentation after, I assume?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
we're-
sure.
Yeah.
All right, not a problem then. Okay, well, friends, it's a pleasure to introduce our speakers. They're representatives from the group Action in Montgomery. And until just over a year ago, AIM, which I'll just call AIM, Action in Montgomery, was the most effective local progressive organization I never heard of. As members of Indivisible Montgomery, we can point to important achievements in electing and pushing our congresspeople to enact progressive policies that benefit the majority, that is the 99% of the American people. We have focused for the most part on the national platform. There are, however, many issues right here in Montgomery County. For example, affordable housing, early childhood education, medical care, and the environment that have been the focus of progressive groups. And AIM is one of the oldest and most important of these in our county. So I want to present our first speaker, Bill Schauman. He is a member of one of the founding congregations, Ascension Episcopal Church in Silver Spring. Bill has been there with AIM since the beginning. He will tell us what AIM is, what its priorities are, and hopefully suggest possible areas of cooperation between Indivisible and AIM. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bill.
Hi. Okay. So actually, Ogechi is going to speak first, and let me go find our agenda, which is on the. I would like to share a screen with you on that. Okay.
Bill, let me make you a co-host. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Okay, you should see the share screen button down at the bottom of the screen now.
Okay, great. So back to our meeting. Yep, I see share screen. So I'll put up our agenda, and then we worked out the details here a little earlier, a little later in the week, last week. So Ogechi is going to be our first speaker, and ta-da! Here's our agenda.
Hi, my name is Ogechi Calaberry. I'm also a member of Action in Montgomery. I'm a member of the strategy team and a parishioner at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church, which is also a founding member of AIM. So I would like to describe AIM for you all. How I would describe AIM is primarily we're an organization of organizations. We include churches, synagogues, Title I schools, which Title I means that there's a percentage of the students that receive free or reduced meals for lunch or breakfast, and small nonprofits. Those are our membership groups. And we look and sound different from each other, obviously, but what we have in common is our commitment to social justice that benefits all, equity that benefits all, and we come with solutions, not just pointing out the problems that we see in our county. And we do that because we believe that everyone should come together, everyday people should come together, and that is the type of democracy that works for the US. We can't have a democracy that does not include everyone's voices being lifted up.
Okay, so so you may wonder exactly how we're organized. We have about 30 congregations, churches and synagogues, a couple of interest groups, and at the moment 14 schools, and all of these organizations pay their dues, and we feel like that helps fund the organization, Action in Montgomery. And it also gives us a little bit of skin in the game, because to some extent we own the organization. It's a kind of common stock organization. Anyway, if we don't like something that AIM leadership is doing, we feel free to speak up and say, hey, come on, we're paying dues. What are you going to do about this problem? So, and one good thing I think about Action in Montgomery is the organizations that belong to it really get an education in practical politics. So, especially the core team members in any organization, that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 people, have a lot of opportunities to engage in various forms of politics. So, for example, there are big actions that we consider mass turnout actions, but also chances to meet one-on-one or 3-on-1 with local politicians, and that's very valuable. And we get experience in organizing. So it's a kind of school for politics, and very satisfying because we actually get to see the results of our efforts. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes we do.
I know we're short on time. It is a short video. I'll just put the link in the chat, but I also wanted to express more about how we do business. We have a democratic process for deciding on issues that we take up. This past year, we had we listened to over 1,500 people across the county, from schools, synagogues, churches, and from those listening sessions that we have, whether they're a small group or one-on-one, we're asked, what is something that keeps you or your loved ones or your community from thriving? And the issues that we've been focusing on this year came from that listening session. Those issues are then voted on, and they're grounded in the listening, but also leaders who are willing to work to make sure that those that are directly impacted can lead. And a great example is a mother who has education in early childhood education. She is a member of church, and because of the cost of pre-K, she is not able to pursue her career. So she stays at home because childcare is just too expensive for her family. So those are the people that are then leaders in the issues, one of which is more accessible pre-K for the whole county.
Okay, so what are some of the things that we've actually managed to accomplish? Well, I think we're well known in housing circles for our advocacy for affordable housing, and because of our efforts, the Housing Initiative Fund, the County Housing Initiative Fund, has actually been funded with over $1 billion at this point, and that's over a period of 20 years that we've managed to persuade the county to put that much money into making housing more affordable. That's a big one. a couple of years ago, we joined with other organizations to help pass a police reform bill in Maryland, and that tends to make the police a little more accountable to the people they are supposed to serve. I think we're very proud of having persuaded the county to set up an after-school program, first in one or two schools, one or two elementary schools, and in subsequent years after 2016, adding a few new Title I schools each year. So now we have an Excel Beyond the Bell program in 14 schools. And this, if you're curious, that really is not all the schools with more than 50% free and reduced meal students. There's one of the things that struck me after working with AIM for a few years was there's a lot more people struggling out here than one would think, and so we're dealing with people who are stretched very thin, trying to give them a voice. So we're very proud that we persuaded the county to renovate the rec centers in certain historic African American neighborhoods, like Scotland neighborhood in Potomac and Plumgar. These are neighborhoods that were generally underserved, and their rec centers have been built in the 60s and were badly in need of rebuilding and renovation. So we managed to get the county to allocate about $30 million for that. And then when they tried to wriggle out, we held a big action and forced them to follow through on their commitments. And that was a very big deal. And then finally, this year, there are two schools that have been entirely rebuilt. And when the students go back to school at South Lakes and Burton Mills this fall, they will be going back to new schools. So we've been quiet but effective.
Yes, I'm very proud, especially of the last point, renovating the two Title I schools, because that took many years of back and forth and broken promises and a lot of networking with not just the parents and teachers at those schools, but also the press to put pressure on the county to fulfill their commitment for those schools. I live very close to South Lake, and I live even closer to the temporary location for South Lake while the school was being built. And so it was deeply personal to me to see a school that was neglected and under terrible conditions, but with the most amazing students and teachers and families, finally get the respect they deserve, knowing that schools that are close to where I formerly used to work in Potomac never had to wait for those necessary renovations. And so that's an equity issue that we highlight. And I love that the parents are not just people that we serve, they are the leaders in these actions. They speak up, they come to those small meetings with politicians, and our members can do anything from being on an action team for climate or education and doing that research and having those conversations with council members, or even on a statewide level with our partner organizations, or they can come to a big action. And a big action is a big gathering where we either hold county council members accountable, we hold ourselves accountable to issues. We might initiate a campaign for a listening session, which we did a couple of years ago, which led us to that 1,500 listening session number. But this is when large numbers of people from the different organizations or people that might want to learn more about AIM come and pack a hall and listen, and politicians are often invited, but also the leaders that have been taking up these issue items are sharing their stories and educating all of us. We also have county-wide actions, which are just on a smaller level meetings where we kind of flesh out the different issues and talk about the steps that are needed. So it's a very much, you can be as involved or as you can. You could be a part of your core team for your organization, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But all of these accomplishments are great, but obviously, as you know, there's always work to be done. We need to make sure that families can find affordable, high quality care for their young children. We are focusing this year on expanding access to quality dental care for adults who don't qualify for dental insurance. In our climate equity initiative, we are focusing on low-income neighborhoods, especially now that we're hoping to get funding from Biden's bill, and we want to make sure that that money goes to those most neglected in our society, so those low-income neighborhoods, so they can have climate renovations and weatherization in their affordable housing units. And finally, local neighborhood improvements, something as simple as speed bumps, pedestrian safety, public bus lines, those things that we can partner and have small wins that have huge impact on communities that are often neglected. If you notice, there are certain areas that are neglected, and it says something when a certain demographic is often neglected. So lifting up those voices, lifting up those people in the margins is the best part of what I think we do in AIM. I know we're limited on time, so I wanted to know if you had any questions for us.
There was a question in the chat, and Ogechi, and it was, what does a big action look like?
I'm glad you asked that.
I think I described it a little bit. So our most recent action was, I want to say like
March.
It was very large, and that was the one you were
March.
at.
Yeah.
And it's large members from different congregations. We had invited the new county council and county executive. And so we reminded them of the issues that they said yes to when they were running for office. And we asked them to recommit to those issues. And instead of just talking about the issues and problems, we also brought forward solutions. So one of those solutions, for example, with dental care, would be a mobile dental care van that could go to those neighborhoods and those people that are disproportionately affected by a lack of access to quality dental care. So we don't just talk about issues, we also provide solutions and are willing to partner with the council to bring those solutions to fruition. As you know, they are deciding in the next 4 days on the budget for the next fiscal year. And so we do have a tangible action that you can do, which is just to, like you were talking about, write letters to your county council, make sure that they don't forget about these issues that they said yes to in the big action when they're in their smaller committee meetings and deciding what stays and goes, or what doesn't get fully funded, or what gets fully funded when they're making those budget decisions. So Bill will talk about how you can write to the council members and make those voices heard.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I see some hands up, but I'm wondering if we just
Sure.
hold up on questions until Bill finishes, until the speakers finish, if that's okay. But
Okay. Yeah, I'll just post a link to the chat, and this is an Action Network site where we make it very easy for the participant to send 11 letters at a time to all the members of the council, the current members of the council. It's a form letter that's in English and Spanish, and it's very easily customizable. And I've written my 11 letters, and it only took me about 10 minutes. So we invite you, if you look at the form letter and you like our agenda, we invite you to send off 11 letters of your own to the council. And you can customize it and say, I'm a member of Indivisible, and but I'm happy to support Action in Montgomery and their agenda for this year. So put that link out right now.
all right, that would be great.
Just a sec. Voila. And it's also available on the website. So if that for some reason doesn't work for you.
Okay.
Yeah, we would love to
No,
have
I'm
more
not,
people.
I'm not,
running
somehow I'm
letters.
not seeing things on the,
Oh, I didn't send it yet.
oh, okay.
Woo,
I would just point
technology.
out, you did have, there was a image that picture you showed with council members and then one with Westmore. And that would be, they would be coming to the big action, I assume. These large actions that you.
Yes.
That was from the last action on,
Yeah.
on March
Right.
12th at People's
Yeah.
Community Baptist.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
oh no, the Westmore one was from earlier, but that was up in
Yeah.
Anne Arundel, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sure, we're free to answer questions.
Yes. I want to take a couple of questions if you have them. I know there were hands. I can't see all the
Yeah, there's some folks with hands.
Barbara Lovett had a question, and then Nina had a question. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's less of a question than sharing a resource. In the early childhood space, there's an organization called Laundry Cares Foundation that installs early childhood literacy centers in laundromats. So when families are doing laundry, there's something educational for their children to do. They're in laundromats all over the country. As far as I can, last time I looked, there were none in Montgomery County. I shared this information in person, followed up with a few emails with Mark Elrich like a year or two ago. I've mentioned it to Evan Glass. It's an incredible resource. Yeah, it costs a little money to put in the laundromats, but it really benefits the community and the children. And like, I've seen videos about, owners of laundromats who are thrilled to partner with Laundry Cares Foundation and get the laundromats in. And this would be, so many low-income families do their laundry in laundromats and the kids are doing who knows what, but it's not, educational. Yes, Laundry Cares Foundation. And, as far as I know, the last time I checked, there were none in Montgomery County. I think the closest one was in Alexandria, but it would be a really good way to support families with young children. And it would be really great to get Montgomery County on board with it. So that was just.
Thank you for sharing.
And then Nina had a question. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I was just interested, my issue is climate, and I'm actually interested in the intersection between climate and education also. I have two kids who went through school in Montgomery County public schools, and there's just, for a county that's as progressive as ours, I'm surprised at how little education there is about climate related issues. And so I was wondering if this group had any thoughts on that. I had an experience where my son lost a retainer in the trash, and going through the trash to find his retainer, it occurred to me that, we have compost crew around, and there are a lot of opportunities just in schools. And at the same time, I had read about a Native American student who had worked with their school to put solar on the roof of the school, and then that got spread around. Things like that, like engineering for high schools where they learn how to do renewables, things like that. That just seems like something that should be happening a lot more, at least in Montgomery County.
Well,
Go
go ahead.
So right now, the intersection of education and climate, the way that you're describing it, isn't happening. What we found is when we first started with the after school programs, those parents that initially joined AIM and we got involved and had conversations with were bringing up issues that were related to climate injustice in their affordable housing apartments and homes. And so we have been working with them to do things like testing about toxic gas levels in their homes. And through that, they're educating those communities, especially Spanish-speaking communities, about the necessary, the dangers of climate injustice in their community. bringing it from something that's often abstract and focused, and whose voices are usually people that are more wealthy, and bringing it down to a level that meets the day-to-day impact that it has on health for their children. That's the intersection that we are focused on right now. But it is interesting to partner with schools to make sure that those students are educated and also given tools on how to provide solutions in their schools related to climate justice. So that would be an interesting concept, but that's not what we're working on currently.
Yeah, and related to what you just said, if you don't mind, the organization 350 Montgomery County, they're actually doing a campaign right now to look at methane around neighborhoods. They're starting in Silver Spring based on the DC gas. I don't know if I can't remember the exact name, but they've done a lot of public, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, our partner organization, WIN, in Washington, DC, just had a big action related to that methane gas. So we've been doing testing around for gas, especially NO2. And so it would be interesting to partner with. I'm not sure if we might be already, but it's great that a lot of organizations and people are finally understanding, especially given the few recent gas explosions that have happened in communities that are lower income.
Yeah, you remember the
Yeah, I
Flower
love the
Branch
citizen
explosion?
science. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, you remember the Flower Branch explosion,
Yeah, yep,
which was a gas explosion. That 7 people lost their lives.
yeah.
So we
I
actually
think
helped
that's
the,
an important effort.
okay. We helped the tenants at Flower Branch to, we felt like the county was moving too slowly on getting them assistance. So we did hold an action at St. Camillus Joanne Lilac Elementary School in support of those tenants.
Can you repeat the name of you said 350?
It's 350 MoCo, but there's the wider national organization is 350.org. I can put a link if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know about 350, 350 MoCo and 350 and Bill McKibben, and he was in town recently for his most recent project was
Right.
What is it?
About the banks.
Third act. I guess
Yeah.
I
Yep.
qualify as a member of the Third Act. So yeah, all these organizations, we all know about each other.
Was there
Any other questions?
I thought it was a third person.
Yeah.
I have a question if there's nobody else waiting.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anyone.
It sounds to me, I feel like I've learned so much today, so thank you guys. But I'm wondering, I mean, this is really a member-driven action. And, how do the folks you're working with must have a million pressures on them in their lives, just trying to make a living. And how do is it hard to get their participation? How does that work? Do you know?
So, no. I think partly because we do pay dues as member organizations. So you're not going to pay dues for something you're not going to utilize and be a part of. So that's part of why each organization.
It's the congregation, yeah.
But each organization also has a core team. So we're not expecting every single member of the church or school to be at every single meeting, but the core team might meet regularly or have a delegate. We have delegate meetings. So there are different ways to be a leader, depending on your availability. Some of those families at schools, they only come to the big actions with their kids because that's what they can do. Right. Some are more involved, like the women at Hewitt Avenue. They have a tenant organization, so it's in their best interest to meet and talk about issues anyway, and then they can bring that to AIM, the AIM lead organizer that works really closely with them and they can decide if there's an action, a mini action related to their community that needs to happen, or conversations with county council members that need to happen. I love the Hewitt Avenue women because they really partner. Some of them, along with the women at Cider Mill Apartments in Gaithersburg near me, we went up to Annapolis to do some statewide advocacy work related to climate. And it was lovely on the phone. We were all of us in this van carpooling back home, and people were on the phone talking about, oh, so-and-so is going to pick up your kid from the after school program, so you don't have to rush. And there's a partnership there because we're very relational as an organization. We have one-on-ones regularly to get to know each other. So that bond of relational organizing separates us from some other kind of organizing. And I think a commitment to neighbor, Bill, and other people that might be from more affluent parts of the county are also relational with us. And so it's the concept of, if my neighbor is in need, or if I'm not getting what I get, I care. And I'm not just saying, I'm not a NIMBY and saying like, oh, that's nice to have over there, but don't touch my zip code. So that relational aspect, I think, is what separates us and keeps us committed. And just the varied levels of commitment that you can have, from just coming to the big action to writing letters to council members, which is a pretty low impact way to be involved, but still impactful, to the one-on-one meetings with county council members.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. That's a great question. To finish off, I did want to say, if you are a member, if you live in Montgomery County and you're a member of a group, a nonprofit, a congregation, a synagogue, a mosque, wherever, or even a school that is near, you live near a Title I school that we don't get to work with yet. If you would like to come to learn more about AIM, you can definitely email one of us, or email Fern, and she can send our email, and we can invite you to our next meeting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we'd love to have you show up for one of our actions too. The more the better.
Okay.
We have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Oh,
So I will say there definitely is.
oh, yes, go ahead.
There definitely are a lot of faith
Atheist.
groups there, but there are people of no faith that are also there.
Right.
But I
no
will
faith.
say that some of the places we hold actions are in places of worship. So if that makes you uncomfortable, I'm just noting that to be transparent. And there's a lot of people that do this work because of their faith, and those are the conversations they have. So again, if that makes you uncomfortable, I'm just being transparent. I'm not gonna pretend that faith isn't discussed, but there are people that have no faith that are members and participate in our actions, and big and small ways. So you're welcome. But I always like being honest, so as to not create an environment that makes someone uncomfortable.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like any of your priorities are particularly faith dependent.
No,
something that,
No, not really.
is that correct? Oh, okay.
People might say like God, or my faith calls me
Oh,
to.
I see.
So some people might be uncomfortable with that kind of conversation. So I'm always, this is part of my diversity work. I'm always trying to be as inclusive but honest as possible, so as to not invite someone to a space where they feel unwelcome or uncomfortable. Sorry, that's my DEI hat. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to spend some time in your meeting and to share about AIM. We have all the links there. Please write those letters and reach out to us if you have any other questions or would like to come to a county action or a big action, a small meeting, whichever fits your schedule.
Yeah, Fern will be able to tell you about what's on the schedule, what's coming up.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill and Ogechi. This for just really an inspiring and an exciting presentation. And I hope this spurs a lot of ideas in us about, how to participate and get involved in our own backyard, so to speak.
Yes.
So thank you again very, very much. Hope to see you and work with you soon.
All right, we'll be around. Thank
Okay,
you guys for inviting us, and we'll see you soon.
all right.
Thanks a million. Wow, that was great.
Yeah, it was.
Very good. All right, well, that was in, so we're ready for the last part of the meeting today. And this is the discussion about going forward with Indivisible Montgomery. As you guys all remember, we're in transition between Steve's wonderful leadership and me beginning to take over. I won't be able to take over until July 1st, but that's coming right up. So, but that having been said, the steering committee has been meeting regularly. And just as a reminder, steering committee members, most of whom are on the call today, Steve, Fern, Judy Kovich, Mike, Marceau, Susan, and who else am I forgetting? Because every time I list names, I screw up. Martin. Yeah, Martin Trocchi is also on the steering committee, but he is not with us this morning. He had another commitment. So as a result, steering committee, it's been put together some ideas about going forward. And the purpose of this part of the meeting is to ask you, where do you see, what's important to you? What are you interested in having Indivisible work on? I'm going to share just a very brief, this is just like 4 slides, 5 slides, whatever, just to help me kind of organize my thoughts. And every time I do this, I lose, can you hear me? Because sometimes I lose my audio when I share on Zoom. No? Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
Not this time. Okay, thank you so much. But the only trick is I can't see the slides. So let me see, here we go. All right. All right, so just quickly, this is what's our path. All right, so just putting a framework around some dates, and I'm not going to be able to see the chat right now, so somebody else could monitor chat, just as some key dates to kind of frame our work around. One of the things that Steve already mentioned, the Virginia primary race, the race that we would probably be most interested in. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's no time really for us to do an organized action around getting Aird elected, but for all the reasons that Steve mentioned, it's massively important to get her across the finish line for that primary and kick out Morrissey, who is a very strange guy and not worthy. So again, Steve's email the other day on the 20th gave some links. We already mentioned this, how you can plug in right now to help. And we put some links in the chat during the meeting today. The next big, and then the next big push after that is looking towards the November 2023 Virginia elections. And as you remember, this is, kind of an off-year thing, but it's massively important. Tim Kaine, Senator from Virginia, called the Virginia elections in November the canary in the coal mine for the 2024 elections. The entire state legislature will be up for, will be running. Right now, the Dems have a small majority in the Senate and the GOP has a small majority in the House. And as they now have a very conservative governor, this is a vital election to see that we make sure that we retain the majority in the Senate and hopefully flip the House to prevent some of, and if this doesn't happen, you can sort of see the future here. You just go and look at what's been going on in Tennessee and Florida, Texas, those legislative agendas that are going on. So we will be, and we've already started, finding opportunities to work for the November 7th election. After
Your
that,
screen is not showing, Dee.
oh,
There it is. That's got it.
okay. You can see it. I'm like not great with Zoom, and I can't see. Okay, you guys can see this, the screen, right, with everything through November 5th?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
seeing.
Okay, perfect. Then sort of going through 2024, we do, we have the Maryland primaries coming up. I don't know what we'll want to do with that, but it's kind of a bit of Senator Cardin retiring kind of leaves some interesting kind of changes here. We know for sure David Trone, who many of us worked on that congressional 6th district election, wants to run for the Senate. So I'm not sure what that's going to do with the 6th district, whether we're going to have to go out and make sure that we work very strongly to make sure that we get another Democrat in there. As you remember, we had a MAGA candidate trying to get elected in the 6th district, and Trone won by 54%. So remains to be seen. Then going forward to the November 5th general election, we have a number of possibilities for to work. Indivisible itself has what they call the unrepresentative campaign to take back the House. They've identified 18 GOP reps who won seats in districts that Biden won. And there are two, I didn't put the Pennsylvania one up here, but there's two close to us that Indivisible, the National Indivisible, have targeted that really should be defeated. One is Jen Kiggins in Virginia, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what the other Pennsylvania one. I put the link to this whole strategy in the slide, and so that may very well be a good focus for us, for sure, to try to get the House back, or get the House. And then again, there's that question in our own state that we need to be concerned about with the 6th district. And then going forward, of course, we have really big elections to be concerned about. There are 33 seats in the Senate that will be up for, that will be in play. And just looking at some of the analysis this morning, 3 seats have actually been identified as toss-ups. So that's Ohio, Arizona, and West Virginia. And then a little less concerned because on the second tier, these are battleground, which will be some of these states lean Democratic, but still a concern. Pennsylvania, the closest one to us is the two Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, and of course, Senator Kaine in Virginia. I think hopefully Virginia is more safe. And then of course we have the presidential election. So that's kind of a roadmap of where we can, focus our efforts, which is a lot, a lot to do. All right, so how do we work? And this is where I really hope to get a discussion here on where do you see Indivisible and yourselves, what are you interested in? These 3 or kind of 5 focus areas are the areas that the steering committee have identified. The first is, and I'm just calling these teams, team. So the first one is around the whole work with voter registration. We know that, I think we can all agree that the Trump base is pretty much a lost cause. The Democrats, people who are already identified as Democrats, we hope they, we retain them. The group to be focused on are the swing voters, and also the young voters, Generation Z, and historically underrepresented voters. So the steering committee is interested in working on voter registration. We could possibly work locally. We could possibly try to see how we could fit in more far away efforts. That kind of remains to be seen. And then the second team would be a team related around action. So these are our more traditional actions that we work on: postcarding, phone banking, possibly canvassing in Virginia and in Pennsylvania. And these are all, there are really good structures out there already that we can plug into. It's not like we necessarily have to create our own, ways to do phone banking. We've got a really good network with Jay Walker, with Andrea Miller's group. There's lots and lots of ways that we can plug in, but our work is to, is to make sure our members are doing that and helping or providing information to our members. The third, that's more related to actual, making change, supporting democracy, are in the space of donations. Back in January, we saw a really good, I thought it was a really good presentation from Melissa Walker with the States Project. And this is the states, as you recall, if you were in that talk, the states are really where the rubber meets the road. Just a second ago, I mentioned again, Tennessee, Texas, Florida. You see these things that the state legislatures are doing that are devastating. And we, what books your kids read, will LBG, will gay and trans folks be targeted? Will women be denied the right to make choices? These are all state issues. And we saw, as you recall, that that presentation, that it doesn't cost as much money to swing a state as it does for a federal level election. The States Project has a really nice template for groups who want to join together and create what is known as a giving circle, where we would, if any of, those of us who are interested, join together, come up with map our personal networks that we can possibly tap into for donations, and then go to work and actually form a giving circle focused on possibly the campaigns that are available right now are Pennsylvania and off the top of my head, Michigan are already, the States Project are already building an infrastructure where we could plug in. And then last, there are two needs. We need folks who would work on events, organizing the monthly meeting, organizing dine-arounds, picnic, parade in Kensington, and so forth. And then working on communications. This is hugely important, the newsletter, emails, people who can respond to contacts from groups. You just saw a great presentation that from a local group that we just learned about that came through contacts, obviously that Fern has, but we get contacted a fair amount by email from other groups saying, hey, what's Indivisible doing, or can you, be involved? So these 5 areas are possible areas for your efforts. And what we'd like to do now, and I'll just flip down the slide, the next part is discussion. So if it's helpful, I can keep this slide up, and I'd love to open the floor and possibly go back to Zoom to see if I can see anybody. There we go. All right, there you all are. To come up with, to hear from you. Reactions, thoughts, inspirations. Let's hear from you guys. And also, if any members of the steering committee want to help me out here and plug into what I just said, I'd certainly welcome that.
One thing I would say is Dee's done a great job of outlining what the steering committee has talked about, but if you participated on one of these teams, then you and the others on that team would be the ones ultimately deciding on actions or donation strategies or events. This is what sort of a broad picture of what we think we should be doing, but it's going to be up to you all. If you volunteer on a team, you'll be able to decide.
Also,
Okay.
yeah, this is Judy. If you feel more comfortable putting your recommendations in the chat, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had a couple of, Nina has mentioned youth voter registration. And yes, Simon Rosenberg has stressed that, others have too. It's an area that is going to be really important for Democrats. And when we talk about voter registration, I assume that the team, whoever it is, will focus in part on youth vote.
I was just mentioning that organization headcount, that they do that around music venues and concerts and things. Might be a good partner.
Thanks,
Does that group already have some actions in place to get going with that we could kind of tag along with them?
Headcount?
Yes. Is there a
I'm
list?
not sure. We would have to check the website. I'm just aware of the organization, but I haven't worked with them
Okay.
directly.
I thought we heard that Valerie Barr was going to try to do this again like she has in the past, and I would certainly be willing to be part of that. I mean, I have time during the day where I could get into schools or other places like that. If I could contact her and let her know, I guess, and we can she can have some guidance as to what we want to do going forward.
Yeah, Valerie Barr worked on voter registration with Indivisible in the past, and she's said to me she is willing to work on it again, but I don't have the details from her yet what she's interested in, and she's on travel right now. So, but that's so to be seen.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
I have something, a reaction as well. I want to also commend Dee for this wonderful, very broad outline of the issues before I am. But I do want to stress, to all of us, really, steering committee members, however, that we are in transition, and that means that in particular, we are at a point where what we need is infusion of energy. I mean, the fact that we have a new steering committee that's going to be taking over from Steve is really an important first step, but it can't, in terms of IM infrastructure, that isn't enough. We also need a volunteer, for example, to work with us on communication. For example, the newsletter. That's an important part of the infrastructure that will enable us to kind of discern, how to approach this roadmap that Dee has set up. I also want to emphasize we need a volunteer or two concerning and to work on IM or team events like helping with speaker invitations or monthly meetings. For example, should we begin meeting in person, having in-person meetings or hybrid meetings, maybe in person to start?
Yeah.
If that's true, we need people to volunteer to do those kinds of things. Another kind of face-to-face would be dine-arounds. We used to have those. Is there any energy in the membership for that? That's an important part of creating the energy to begin to work out and address the things in this roadmap. So that's kind of my comment. We're at a point now where we just need some people to step up, and so glad that Nina has done so, talking about communication. but we need, if you've got time, and I think the idea is do what you can. I don't think that it has to be overwhelming in any way, but just some piece of this to get us to the next stage.
Do we have sound?
Yeah, we have sound. I'm I'm hoping, I'm waiting for somebody else to speak though, because otherwise, so Judith, I'm sorry, Judith can work on. My chat's jumping around, guys. Sorry, I'm losing. I have Rose said she needs to think it over. That's totally fair. Sounds good. Okay, we've captured a couple of other folks.
All right.
Nina, okay. Yep, got you, Nina. And Judith would be happy to work with Valerie Barr. Judith, I'm so sorry. Can you just tell me what your last name is? It says Judith Guest to me, so, or DM me with your info, please. Okay, thank you. Looking for the rest
This
of
is
the.
great. I'm just looking at the chat, and this is really very helpful.
Are you capturing this, Judy? Because I can't see the chat.
Oh, gosh.
Or it's just jumping. I don't know why, what's wrong. I hate Zoom.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie. Snyder.
Yeah, Debbie Snyder says she'd like to have some. Yeah. Yeah, Kathy Dierkowski focusing on District 6. Yeah, I'm worried about that. For sure.
Are you seeing the chat now, Dee?
Yeah, kind of. It just jumps. I don't know why. It might be my laptop too. Other folks?
And I guess somewhat selfishly, I will add that if there are any suggestions for speakers at our monthly meetings, we'd also be very open to suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Trone will stay where he is. I wish he would. I agree with you. That was a little close there. Okay, Judith Nuno, voter registration and. Bill McKibben coming to talk to us, Nina? That's
Okay,
kind of a big name.
You asked for suggestions.
Yeah, thank you. That's fair. Totally. I'd love to have Bill McKibben come and talk to our group.
We could probably get someone from 350 Milko to join us on the Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, they would.
But is that also the kind of thing that people want to hear about? I mean, I know we're all interested in. I guess the bigger rolling up that. I mean, it's great to have these specific suggestions. What about like the broader direction? Are we, I mean, our steering committee, I know, is and Indivisible, of course, is very focused on preserving democracy. That is where we started. That's our roots. That's our kind of our soul, so to speak, our group. Certainly, the environment is part of democracy. I mean, if you're a victim of environmental injustice, political solutions can help in that space. I'm just.
Yeah, it's all tied
You know
together.
what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
So I know a while back, I guess it might have been pre-pandemic, we had separate work groups, and then there was a decision made to not do that. What is the thinking about that now?
Oh, okay. I don't know that history.
I do.
Yeah, Steve,
We
please.
did have work groups. We had, they were organized, excuse me, we had a communications group. We had
The admin
an
group.
elections group, which I was chair of before I
Yeah.
was the director.
And there was an environmental group.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, an environmental science group led by Angela. But most of the groups weren't doing much. The environmental group did a lot of commenting on regulations, in fact, really substantive work. But I think that got to be a bit much for the members of that group. But, we're open to all sorts of suggestions. This is what we've talked about in the steering committee. But if you have ideas about other committees or a different way to approach it, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, I'm open. I'm just thinking, there are folks that are going to be more focused on voter registration or whatever it might be. And they sort of form into sort of subgroups anyway, just by volunteering to work on particular things. I don't know. I'm open, whichever, but I just thought it was something to bring up to discuss.
Well, we definitely envision, actually Martin Trocky, who's not on our call, but he's on the steering committee, he said, well, we need to form committees. And I was sort of like, well, we need to decide what we're doing first. But I think you're right. I mean, this is going to naturally coalesce around a team, around a committee. We have like 3 or 4 people who want to work on voter registration. The steering committee isn't going to swoop in and tell you guys what to do. It's going to, like Steve was saying, it's going to be driven by those people. I mean, the steering committee is here to help and I strongly suspect, there'll be a steering committee member on various teams and committees. But this needs to be driven from your passion and your, what you want to see accomplished. I think for me personally, voter registration and I actually work for NOAA, so I'm like, environmentally, I'm very passionate about, but for at least for another month. And, but to me, personally, my passion is working on elections and it will be voter registration, but we have a wide spectrum of potential work here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it'll be driven largely by what people decide to do, who steps forward to volunteer. We can say we want a team for whatever purpose or issue,
right?
But unless people volunteer, we don't have a team. So if people step forward and raise their hand and say, we want to work on X, then we'll have a team working on X.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way for us to leave this presentation, make it available, let's say, to members there? My thought is that there might be some people that want to think things over and look over and look over what the steering committee has presented, and then see if there's something that that they would be interested in and willing to kind of be involved, even if they feel like, if that's something they would like to be involved with. Let's just leave it at that.
Right. So I think we said, that what we're going to do as a follow-up is send out an email with a
Okay.
link to the presentation,
Okay.
because, we don't have everybody here on the call with us
Right.
this morning anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. And, like Rose was saying in the chat earlier, I need some time to think about this. And that's like, I'm going to stop sharing these because we're close to the end here, our end time now.
Dee, I have another quick question about the topics that you covered. I wrote in the chat about North Carolina. I know it may be a done deal, but they just had that person flip from Dem to
Oh my God.
Republican that ruined everything. Is there any wider indivisible plan about North Carolina?
I don't know. Steve, do you have some thoughts?
If you mean targeting her in particular,
Yes.
no, you're talking
No,
about
that
the
sounds
state in
hopeless,
general.
but just
Yeah.
generally, yeah.
Yeah. No, I personally haven't, it's still a little early to decide which states we will focus on or encourage people to focus on. North Carolina certainly could be one of them. I agree with you. I don't think we should give up on North Carolina by any means.
Right, I don't either. But I don't, on the various things I looked at to put those slides together, I didn't see anything specific, like, that groups were recommending actions in North Carolina. But yeah, like Steve says, it's early days. And yeah. Debbie Snyder says,
I made it work on voter registration.
Debbie Snyder's voter registration. Yeah. Great. Great. Any last thoughts, guys? And again, we don't need, this is not the be all end all here in this discussion. So
There is an idea about sending out a survey, surveying.
Yeah.
Members,
sure, we can do that.
Dee, can we save the chat?
I don't know how to do
Yep.
that.
Yes.
Tell me how, and I will.
We can.
Okay.
One quick thing before we log off here. Simon Rosenberg has some ideas about reaching out for the to the young voters and how important that is. I've been getting his newsletters. There's a lot of
Yeah, hopium, awesome. Yeah, the good thing about what I think is that we have tons of resources, and one strong thing, especially under Steve's leadership, these newsletters that he's been putting out for us, over the past couple of years are just chock full of resources and people to follow. And, doing that will guide us to like where we plug in some of these cases, I think. Yep, totally. All right, team. Well, I got 4 minutes to noon. I could give you 4 minutes back of your lives, or any last comments? It's been a pleasure to talk to everybody today. I've loved the meeting. I hope you guys got a lot out of it.
Thank you.
There is a lot of hope. There's action drives out despair. So, Nina.
That's right.
Oh, clap. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm happy that we got a new member. Welcome, Debbie. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Yeah. Thank you. Same. Thanks, Mike, for picking that out. All right. Well, I'm going to see if I can stop recording and end the meeting, and you all have a really good day. See what you can do for Lucrece aired. Right, if it's easy to write some postcards with that vote, the link that Steve sent out, because you can use a generic postcard for that. Okay. All right, team. Thanks a million.
Thanks,
Thank
Dee.
you.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
I'm muted.
Bye all.